Everybody, it's David. Welcome back to Cross Fitness, helping men and women get the best spiritual shape of their lives, one workout at a time. Quick thought in this video, and I'm calling the power of the fingers. Okay, you may be familiar with a proverb that says life and death is in the power of the tongue. The tongue. And I was in a Bible study recently. We were talking about taming the tongue out of the book of James. It's a butt kicker book in the New Testament, James, talking about self-control and the tongue and all that kind of stuff. But today I'm in the chronological Bible, and we've been in 1 Samuel in the fall of King Saul and the rise of future King David. And Saul is hunting David down, and he's just trying to kill him. And interestingly, right in the chronological Bible in 1 Samuel, it pivots to the Psalms. And we just get a peek behind the scenes in a cave, on a rock, whatever, David writing Psalms, his journal about his experience with Saul, and he is crying out to God. David is pouring out his heart to Psalm. There's a lament in there. But he always ends up in praise and puts his trust in God. And the thing that impressed me today was David said in Psalm 141, I believe it's verse 3, set a guard over my mouth, O Lord, keep watch over the door of my lips. So careful in what he says so as not to curse the Lord's anointed, which was Saul, the anointed king by Samuel, or to curse himself or whatever. And, we've heard that there's life and death in the power of the tongue, and we've got to be very careful with what we say. And, it led me to believe, and I made a comment recently in a men's group as we were talking about the tongue, that it's not just the tongue. There's not only power of life and death in the tongue, but there's also power of life and death in the fingers. Fast forward from David's time, being on the run from King Saul, to our 21st century, where I'm holding an iPhone 14 Pro Max in my hand as I'm recording this. And there's a whole lot of power in our thumbs and our fingers as we text, as we make Facebook post on WhatsApp or X, or Instagram. I mean, gosh, there's so much power in our fingers to bring life, bring death, bring blessing, bring cursing. Have you thought about that? How much power is in our fingers, our thumbs, as we just communicate right through our devices? That's life and death. And so I'd love for you to consider that. In fact, in Psalm 143, 143 or 44, I believe, King David writes this. He said, praise to God, He trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. And his context, it might have been, a bow and arrow, throwing a spear, or, holding a sword or a dagger or something. But, in our cultural context and our modern age, he trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Hey, come on. You see, that's analogous to us battling with our fingers, our thumbs, and through our phones, our iPads, our devices, And so we need to have that training of a warrior as we're, interacting with people on social media, as we're got a remote control in our hands and we're flipping through the channels. Our young people are, just a few clicks away on their phones from hardcore pornography and things like that, and just so much can be obtained that's not good, not healthy, right through our fingers, through our phones. So there's life and death in the power of the fingers. And so my encouragement to you today in this post is, if your heart rate ever increases, don't send that text, don't send that email, don't hit post on that social, okay? If your heart rate ever increases, don't do it. That's a good rule of thumb. See, I did a little pun there, rule of thumb. Okay, anyway. So take that into your day. Remember that not only the power of the tongue, in fact, James 3:2 says this, we all stumble in many ways, but if a man doesn't stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to keep his whole body in check. Wow. Perfect man, simply because you have self-control over your tongue. Well, that's only by submitting our tongue to the Holy Spirit. And I would argue in this video that we need to submit our fingers to the Holy Spirit as well, and use them for forces of good and not evil. So there you go. Something to think about today. For now, I'm David, your virtual mentor, remind you that I'm always for you. Hey, I'm never against you. Have a fantastic day. See you.